welcome to the vertical. I went and cleaned my palate off by drinking some water. And I have the two beers I'm going to be looking at. And the vertical today is in between the Kona Light Blonde Ale and the Waikiki Brewing Craft Light. So, two Hawaii themed beers, because this one is not actually, the Kona is not actually brewed in Hawaii. It's well, unless you get it draft, then it's brewed in Hawaii. But the canned versions are not brewed in Hawaii. There's no canning line in Hawaii. So I think they might be changing that though. But the COVID thing is probably going to put a stop damper on that for a bit. So while looking at the box, I noticed that this also has an IBU rating of 18. This is IBU of 8, so kind of interesting in that respect. 4.2, 4.0. Well, shall we get to this? We're going to be doing this in two no-nicks. This no-nick is a little bit bigger than the other because I don't have two same size no-nicks. So, pop open and give it a pour. I'm going to pour out the Kona Light one first because it seems to have a bit more of head retention there. Nicely golden. Should have poured it, give it a little bit more vigorous. And now for the Waikiki Craft Light. Much paler in color. Much more even in head. So as you can see, the Kona one here, darker in color, bit more cloudy, just ever so much. This one very pale, very light, very clear. Both of them don't really have much head retention. The Craft Light seems to have a little bit more. Again, mango, some fruit in the Kona Brewing one. This one, well, kind of dissipated already, but more hops, more aromatic hops. And a drier graininess underneath it. Kona Brewing. Refreshing. I'm going to be really refreshed after this. Two refreshing beers. This one is much drier, much sharper, far more perceived carbonation on the palate. A very distinct but brief hop profile that is somewhat effervescent, but mostly clean on the finish. And a malting that is definitely crackery to bready. This one is really dominated by the fruit adjunct. So it comes across as very tropical. Definitely much more perceived sweetness. I don't really know the gravity or actual sugar levels in these. When I say perceived sweetness, because something may have a higher sugar level but may actually be drier tasting just due to the hops and the way it was brewed and the yeast that was used, for example. all in all, both of them finish fairly clean. Both of them are not very complicated. Both of them are refreshing. Which one do I prefer? That's actually pretty hard. Light beer is not really my style, even in the craft renditions thereof. If I want something that's light and refreshing and sessionable, I will go with a sour. Or at this point, probably even a session IPA, since I think session IPAs are starting to get a bit better, more well made. They're becoming more than just hop water. Light beer is light beer. Difficult to make, but not too complex. This is actually really hard. I'm trying to decide right now. I'm going to call it a draw. And the reason for that is I enjoy this one better, but I will fully admit that it is using that mango adjunct to go and even out all the rough edges in the beer. You know, so it's got more flavor than your average light beer, by far, but at the same time it's sort of a covering flavor. It's not a brewer's art sort of like, I made this tasteless beer, which honestly is really difficult to do. If you go and look at it, making a light beer is one of the most difficult things a brewer can do. It's just most of them don't want to. This one, on the other hand, is striving for that light beer sort of feel. It's much lighter than the Kona one. Waikiki Brewing Craft Light is much lighter than the Kona Brewing Light Blonde Ale. But at the same time, there's also more interesting notes as well. There's this nice minerality to it. I like the hop dimensionality. This is much more an introduction into craft sort of beer. But at the same time, there's almost just an ever so perceptible off note of sulfur to this. Just very, very slight. That sort of detracts from it. So you have this choice in between something that's really trying to be to the style of light beer, and more or less succeeding, except for one minor knockoff in points, and this thing, which is basically being a tropical light beer, which is a easy drinking sessionable beer with fruit flavor. Kind of an easy way out, as it were. Light beer is not my style. I'm going to just go with this one. Just for the fact that the off note in this, and let me say again, this is very imperceptible. This is something that only my annoying palate can really pick up. I wish it didn't. This one's also a little bit too sweet on once it starts warming up too. This one, the fruit kind of covers up the sweetness, even though there's more apparent sweetness, by kind of balancing it out with that fruit flavor. So yeah, I give them credit for really trying. It is what it says on the bottle. It is craft and it is light. They're using hops. They're definitely using a brewer's art. But light beer is hard, and there's no way to get around it. So that's your sort of inconclusive vertical for this afternoon, since it's not really even 4 o'clock yet. And I had a lot of fun doing this. I'm probably going to be taking a break. There's a few more beers I really want to get to and review, including a Flanders Red, which is something I've never reviewed before. I'm looking forward to doing that. I also have a bottle of sake in the back there that I really need to just review before it starts spoiling and going off. So that's your vertical for tonight, folks. I am going to go and do some chores and make some dinner. And go await for the depressing reality that I have to go to work tomorrow. But such are the vicissitudes of life. Cheers.